How the US dollar bills are made inside the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. If you've ever held a US dollar bill and wondered, how does this thing survive my wallet, my washing machine, and that one time I accidentally ironed it, you're about to find out. Because today, we're stepping inside one of the most secure and fascinating factories in America, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the BEP. This is the place where billions of US dollars come to life every year. And despite what your imagination might suggest, it has nothing to do with magic, fairy dust, or a really busy photocopier. Dollar bills are engineered, designed, layered with hidden secrets, and built to survive more abuse than most smartphones. By the time we're done, you'll understand why US currency is one of the most advanced pieces of paper on Earth. And speaking of paper, Chapter 1. The paper that isn't actually paper. Here's the first twist in the story. US dollar bills aren't made from wood pulp like regular paper. Your notebook? Paper. Your receipts? Paper. Your printed paper at home? Definitely paper. But a US dollar bill? It's actually made of 75% cotton and 25% linen. In other words, your money has more in common with your jeans than your notebook. That's why it feels crisp, flexible, and slightly textured, and why it somehow survives the complete chaos of everyday life. Most people don't realize that a single $1 bill can last around 5 to 8 years in circulation, and a $100 bill? Almost 15 years. Why? Because people don't crumple $100 bills. They treat them like royalty. Now here's a detail that almost nobody notices unless they look closely. Those tiny red and blue fibers scattered throughout every bill, they're not printed on. They're woven into the material from the moment the paper is created. It's one of the oldest anti-counterfeiting features in US currency, and it's been around since the Civil War. But here's the fun part. The BEP doesn't make this paper. There is exactly one company in the United States allowed to produce it, Crane & Co. They've been making US currency paper since 1879, almost 150 years. Their factory is so secure that even shredded scraps of rejected currency paper are guarded until disposal. When the finished sheets arrive at the BEP, they don't look anything like money yet. They're blank beige sheets about the size of a small poster, each one destined to become 32 individual bills. And that brings us to the next stage. Chapter 2. The Art of Money, Engraving by Hand. Dollar bills don't start on a computer screen. They begin with human hands. Real artists, called engravers, sit at desks with magnifying lenses and steel tools, carving microscopic lines into metal plates. It's a skill so specialized that most engravers train for over a decade before they're trusted with a full portrait. Think about that. 10 to 12 years of training just to carve the portrait of, say, Benjamin Franklin onto a metal plate the size of a notebook. Every bill's main elements, the portrait, the building, the numbers, the scrolls, are engraved separately. Each engraving is then combined to form the master plate used for printing. If you've never looked at a dollar bill under magnification, try it sometime. Washington's portrait isn't printed with one line, it's printed with thousands. Tiny hairlines, microscopic shadows, patterns you'd never notice until you zoom in. The reason is simple. A human might not notice these details, but a counterfeiter's printer can't replicate them. And when you run your fingers over a real bill, that raised texture you feel, the slight bumpiness, comes directly from this engraving process. Most countries abandoned hand engraving decades ago, but the US didn't. Because nothing digital can beat the tiny, unique imperfections that only a human hand can create. Once all the engraving plates are finished, they're locked away like national treasures because, well, that's exactly what they are. Chapter 3. The First Colors. Offset printing. If you thought the next step was printing the portraits, surprise, that comes later. The very first thing the BEP applies is the background color. Modern US bills, especially the 5, 10, 20, and 100, have subtle pastel backgrounds. Greens, blues, pinks, yellows. They're not there for decoration. They help fight counterfeiting. Older bills were basically black and white, which meant you could get dangerously close to faking one if you had a high-quality copier. So the BEP added color, layered color that overlaps in ways commercial printers simply cannot mimic. The sheets go into huge offset presses, machines the size of a bus that apply these color patterns with incredible precision. These presses can print more than 10,000 sheets per hour, which works out to over 300,000 notes per hour per machine. At this point, if you held one of the sheets, you'd see the colorful backgrounds but no faces, no seals, no serial numbers, nothing that screams money. It looks like the world's fanciest stationery. But trust me, the good stuff is coming. Chapter 4. Intaglio printing, where money gets its muscles. If offset printing is the paint, then intaglio printing is the sculpting. This is the moment a sheet of currency goes from pretty paper to genuine dollar bill. Intaglio printing is done with massive steel plates that hold the engraved designs. The process works like this. The plate is covered with thick, sticky ink, Then all the excess ink is wiped off the surface. The ink remains only inside the engraved grooves. Then the plate and the paper collide hard, really hard. Each sheet passes under 20 tons of pressure, which is about the same weight as 6 hippos standing on a dollar bill. This extreme pressure forces the paper deep into the engraved lines, transferring the ink and creating that famous raised feel. You can literally feel where the ink sits higher than the paper. Washington's collar, the words Federal Reserve Note, the Treasury seal. These are the textures counterfeiters dread. You can fake color, you can't fake layout, but faking raised Intaglio ink, that's nearly impossible without the same colossal machines and engraved plates the BEP uses. Not to mention, every line in every portrait is intentionally different from bill to bill. Two $20 bills have identical designs, but the microscopic details are unique, which means even if you scanned one bill perfectly, your copy still wouldn't match a genuine one. After the front is printed, the sheets dry for 72 hours. Then they run again for the back design with the same absurd pressure. Only after this step do the sheets finally start resembling money. But they're still missing something big. Chapter 5. The security features. Secret weapons built into every bill. This is the part of the process that feels like opening a spy gadget. If you've ever held a bill up to the light, you've probably seen a faint portrait watermark appear inside the paper. That's not printed, it's embedded during paper making. Tilt the bill slightly and the 20 in the corner shifts from copper to green. That's color shifting ink, a feature so advanced that only a few manufacturers in the world know how to make it. Look even closer and you'll find microprinting, which is teeny tiny text hidden in places you'd never expect, like inside the loops of letters or along the edges of portraits. And then there's the security thread, a plastic strip that runs through the paper, glows under UV light, and actually spells out the bill's denomination over and over. These features are woven into the process in different stages. Some during paper making, some during intaglio printing, some afterward, but they're all part of the same idea: make counterfeiting such a nightmare that nobody even tries. And so far, it's working. Chapter 6. Serial numbers, giving every bill its own identity. Once all the layered artwork, color fields, portraits, and security features are in place, each sheet still looks like it's missing something obvious, because it is. Up to this point, nothing on the sheet distinguishes one bill from another. They're identical twins, beautiful, detailed, security-packed twins, but still twins. That changes in the numbering stage. Serial numbers are the moment each dollar becomes its own individual. Every note on the sheet gets a unique combination of green digits that will follow it for its entire lifespan, from the moment it enters circulation to the moment it's removed decades later. The numbering processes flick bright green ink onto the sheets with a rhythm that feels almost musical. They operate at such high speeds that the numbering appears effortless, even though this step is one of the most critical in the entire process. Each serial number follows a specific structure, but what matters most is that no two bills printed in the same series share the same identity. The numbering gear rotates through its cycle in perfect synchronization with the moving sheets, striking each note's designated position with precision so tight that even a single misaligned digit results in immediate rejection. There's something remarkable about watching stacks of near-identical bills suddenly receive their individual markings, like watching a crowd of identical actors finally step into their unique costumes. And that green ink has a personality of its own. It's engineered to bite into the cotton linen fibers so deeply that even bleach struggles to remove it. Many counterfeiters have tried. The BEP seems to enjoy reminding them that the green ink isn't going anywhere. It survives everything from sunlight to moisture, laundry cycles, folding, crumpling, even the occasional trip through a dog's mouth. By the time the serial numbers are dry, each note has officially become traceable, trackable, and unique. Chapter 7. The seals. The dollar's official stamp of authority. With the serial numbers printed, the bills move on to the seal presses, the moment every note receives the symbols that declare it an authentic product of the U.S. federal system. Two seals appear on every modern bill. The first is the Federal Reserve Seal, a circular insignia that identifies which Federal Reserve Bank issued the currency. There are 12 possible issuing districts across the country, from Boston to San Francisco, each one represented by its own letter. That letter appears in the center of the seal, along with the name of the district wrapped around the edge. For casual users, the letter usually doesn't matter, but for collectors, these tiny differences can be everything. Then comes the Treasury Seal, the emblem with the balanced scales, the key, and the wreath. The scales represent justice, the key represents authority, And the wreath represents honor. Together, the symbol communicates something simple but important. This note is backed, guaranteed, and authorized by the United States government. The machines that apply the seals move at extraordinary speeds, yet each imprint sits on the bill with perfect sharpness. The deep green ink used for the seals is different from the one used for serial numbers. Thicker, darker, more resistant to fading. Both inks bond into the fabric of the bill, but the seals feel especially permanent, almost as if they've fused with the fibers. Once the seals are on, the bills no longer look almost finished. They look complete, but the BEP still isn't convinced. The Bureau trusts the seals, but it trusts the inspection system even more. Chapter 8. Inspection, where perfection is mandatory. Now the sheets enter one of the most unforgiving departments in the building. Quality control. Every sheet is examined with a level of scrutiny that borders on dramatic. The BEP doesn't allow mistakes to slip through. Not blemishes, not misprints, not off-center images, not missing fibers, not smudges, not uneven ink, nothing. Modern inspection relies heavily on advanced imaging systems, machines that photograph every sheet at high speed and compare the prints to the approved design, pixel by pixel. These machines catch microscopic flaws long before a human could. They can detect faint ink variation, small scratches on printing plates, or tiny inconsistencies in texture. But despite the technology, humans still play a huge role. Certain qualities like small texture issues, minor ink pooling, and the feel of the raised intaglio still require trained inspectors who know exactly how a real note should respond to light, touch, and angle. The combination of machine vision and human experience creates an inspection process with almost zero tolerance for error. And error sheets, they never leave this room alive. When a sheet fails inspection, it goes straight into destruction. The BEP has specialized shredding systems for this. Industrial grinders that turn defective currency into tiny confetti-like fragments. Some of the shredded currency gets recycled or sold to the public as novelty souvenirs, but most of it is reduced beyond recognition before disposal. Only the flawless sheets graduate to the cutting stage. Chapter 9. Cutting, turning sheets into individual bills. The BEP prints money in massive sheets, each one containing either 32 or 50 notes depending on the denomination and the facility. But a sheet isn't money, it's potential money. It doesn't enter circulation until it's sliced into individual notes. The cutting machines operate with a mechanical grace that's almost hypnotic. Sheets slide in as uncut panels and emerge as perfectly trimmed stacks of crisp bills. The blades are engineered to maintain exact dimensions. Every bill must measure precisely the same size, not a fraction of a millimeter off, or the whole stack gets flagged. The process happens in two major cuts. First, slicing the large sheets into columns, then slicing those columns into individual notes. The machines do this with such force and consistency that the stacks of bills come out absolutely uniform, with edges so sharp that a fresh stack of hundreds can practically behave like a block of wood. Once cut, the bills are counted by automated systems that confirm totals using both physical sensors and optical checks. If even one note is out of place, the machine stops instantly. Accuracy is more than a guideline here. It's a requirement. The result? Large stacks of uncirculated currency, each bundle identical, crisp, and ready for distribution. But they're still not ready to leave the BEP. Chapter 10. Stacking, strapping, and packaging. Preparing for circulation. Once the bills are cut, they're stacked into thick bricks, usually 100 notes per pack. Those packs are then combined into bundles, and bundles become shrink-wrapped blocks ready for shipping. It's at this point that the bills get their iconic, color-coded straps. These straps aren't for decoration. They identify the denomination and the value of each pack. Banks rely on these straps to process currency quickly and securely. Packaging is tightly controlled. Bills move through conveyors, pressure stackers, wrappers, and final scanners that double-check everything before the currency is allowed to head out the door. Even the packaging material is security-coded. Everything is traceable. Every movement is logged. Watching the stacks move through the packaging department feels a bit like watching a production line for gold bars. Everything is clean, organized, and heavily monitored, except these bars are rectangular stacks of cotton linen fabric printed with history, symbolism, security, and national trust. Once the bills are strapped, the BEP seals them into tamper-evident containers. These containers are transported under strict security protocols to the Federal Reserve. That's where the money officially becomes part of the U.S. financial system. Chapter 11. The Federal Reserve's role, releasing new money into the world. Even though the BEP prints the money, it's the Federal Reserve that decides how much currency enters circulation. New bills don't just get released because they're finished. They get released because banks request them through the Federal Reserve, usually to replace worn-out money or to meet increased demand. When the sealed containers arrive at Federal Reserve cash rooms, auditors verify the contents, check the serial ranges, and require the receipts. These rooms are some of the most secure spaces in the country. Think fortified vault, restricted access, and enough camera coverage to film a Hollywood heist movie. Once cleared, the new bills begin their journey outward to banks, ATMs, businesses, and eventually into wallets, cash registers, tip jars, savings envelopes, birthday cards, vending machines, and the occasional washing machine. A brand new bill looks shimmering and perfect when it enters circulation, but it won't stay that way for long. The moment it hits the public, its lifespan clock begins. Chapter 12. The life cycle of a dollar bill. Each denomination has an average lifespan based on how often it changes hands. Lower denominations live a tougher life. $1 and $5 bills are handled constantly, bent, folded, dropped, and exchanged hundreds of times a week. They last only a few years before wearing out. Higher denominations, especially hundreds, can last well over a decade. They don't circulate as frequently, and when they do, people tend to treat them with a little extra respect. Every worn-out bill eventually makes its way back to the Federal Reserve, where high-speed sorting machines decide whether a note is still fit for use. Fit notes return to circulation. Unfit notes are shredded on the spot. It's a currency recycling system, constant, efficient, and surprisingly elegant. This cycle, print, circulate, return, retire, repeats endlessly. Most people don't realize that a single dollar bill could be part of dozens of different hands, pockets, cash drawers, and bank vaults before its time finally runs out. Chapter 13. The bigger picture. Why dollar bills are engineered the way they are. Stepping back from the machinery, the ink, the paper, and the process reveals something deeper. A dollar bill is more than a piece of currency. It's a national symbol. It's a promise of value, backed by a system built to protect that value at every stage. Everything about the dollar, from the cotton linen blend to the engraving to the layers of security, exists to make sure the public trusts it. Trust is the real currency. The bill is just the vehicle, and the BEP treats that responsibility with almost ceremonial precision. There's a reason the process hasn't been fully automated. Some parts of US currency still rely on human skill, like engraving, inspection, judgment. Machines ensure accuracy, but people ensure authenticity. That combination is what makes the US dollar not just a medium of exchange, but one of the most respected and recognized financial instruments in the world. And that's the journey. From blank cotton linen sheets to the bills that move the world's largest economy. Each note begins as raw fiber, passes through dozens of specialized stages, survives brutal pressure, receives artwork carved by hand, gains a unique identity, and finally enters circulation as official US currency. If the story behind America's money was surprising, enlightening, or just plain cool, consider sticking around for more deep dives into how everyday objects are made. There's a whole world of hidden factories, materials, and processes waiting to be explored. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Which one should be next? The comment section is wide open.